And this is high for the fourth time, which is pretty insane, I think. I never thought I'd be here, even for the first time. I don't know how these guys select me. Uh, so we'll talk about APIs and why APIs matter for us. We use APIs at so many different levels. The first time when I say API, the first thing that people think is backend APIs that you would use to write front end on top of and then show that to your users. But you're also using API that's available to you from the browser. You're also using API that's available to you in JavaScript. And you create your own APIs as well, right? And we are thinking that this could be one of the ways where you can get success when building a framework, looking after your API. And you might suddenly think that this talk really isn't for me because you're not building a framework, you're not building an API. How many of us think that you're not writing any framework right now? Or whenever you work? You don't think you're writing a framework, Satya? Yeah? Do you guys think you guys are not writing APIs? Can I see a quick show of hand who doesn't write APIs here? See, everyone writes APIs and everyone's clear about it as well, right? But do you guys write bad APIs? How many of us write bad APIs? Oh yes, that's a lot of us. I think it's going to be good, right? Can you give me like one big, one big marker about what a bad API could be? There are two guys here that I use as benchmark for bad APIs. What? Use effect, yeah. See, Satya shooting his own product. But you see, I think you're writing a bad API if the other person consuming it needs to be Satya or needs to be Tejas. So absolute geniuses, right? You need a genius to figure out what your API does. I think you're doomed. But let's go over what kind of bad APIs are there. If you feel like you need to be these two guys, you're doomed. If your response structure keeps on changing, and this is something that happens so often, right? Because how many of you have thrown or seen 200 status codes, and it's an error on the inside? See, and it's wild, right? We just do things like that. And it's inconsistent. It works on staging, doesn't work on prod. It works in one browser, doesn't work on the other. Nothing works on Safari, right? And I've got some things in there that don't work in Safari. And then this API is a whole different ballgame. I've seen so many APIs that just do everything that is out there, and they scare me. I look at their parameter list, and if you're using TypeScript, good luck. See, does everything under the sun. You pass it one function, and it does like 60 things and returns all of it back to you. Not the best thing. Is a liar. How many of us are bad APIs, right? It's like use effect, lies a lot. I think you could also look at APIs that tell you that they will create a caption for you, and then they send you an array of string of each character. And so you have to stitch everything together. That's horrible. And then they call it streaming, like ChatGPT. Then you've got an ideological mismatch, right? So a lot of these problems sort of go away if you know exactly who you're building your API for. You need to understand that an API that is being built for a physicist will not work for someone who's building an e-commerce website. Someone in medical would not be able to understand APIs made for people who are, let's say, into sports betting, right? So we need to know who we are creating these things for. So then what do good APIs look like? I think they're easy to learn. They're easy to use. They are very easy to read and maintain. I think readability in my teams have been the biggest pointer for me. Every single time I go through peer reviews, the first thing I say is, can we at least name our functions about the things that they're supposed to do, rather than coming up with function one, function two, right? Then easy to evolve, right? So if you know that your architecture is about to evolve, you explicitly design your API in a way where you can maybe extend parameters or add more functions to it, and it will still behave in that same context. Uh, this one is an even bigger one for me because it's very easy, in my opinion, to write API that's easy to use, but it's so tough to write API that's hard to misuse. We see people leveraging React APIs in all sorts of weird ways, right? Just today, we were debugging something where we were trying to get the React compiler to work, and we weren't doing anything wrong. The compiler wasn't doing anything wrong either. It's just, it's easy to misuse some of the things here and there. So hard to misuse is tough. And then it should sufficiently satisfy requirements, right? It should be just enough is what I think. It should not be overbearing in terms of what it wants to do. So like, make sure your requirements are clear and then you set up an API that does exactly what it's supposed to do. Now, these are some of my personal North Stars. And then there's Joshua Block from Google. He wrote quite a lot of stuff on .NET, a lot of early things on Java. And Joshua Block wrote a book on APIs as well, API design and system architecture, and how it impacts all of it. It's one of my favorites, worth a read, I'd say. And it's like pretty straightforward, right? It says that when in doubt, leave it out. If you think that it does not belong in your API, just let it go. If you think that your API is lean and it does just enough, like enough good power to weight ratio, it's great. If you can decouple it from as many things as possible, so you reduce dependencies, that's great, right? Because tomorrow when you need to evolve, you can evolve this single API in a silo and nothing else breaks. If your name should be self-explanatory, which is a pet peeve of mine, and you should have good documentation, right? It's really cool to see the React compiler docs out, and the docs were out before the beta was released, right? I think that's a North Star that we all could strive for. Transliteration is usually broken, so when you take an API that is built for a very certain kind of platform and then you move it to something else, they might have a very different way of doing things. So React Native Web, I think. And ask yourself if it's a foot gun, right? Can people misuse this API and just shoot themselves in the foot very quickly, where they don't really know what's it going to do and where it might fail? Then look at, avoid returning values that demand exceptional handling. 200 plus error, not the best way to do things. How many of you guys have used any type of search API in your organization? You guys have used it, right? How many of you have page limits and like page numbers and page sizes in an infinitely scrollable list or pagination? A quick show of hands. Yeah, so we've got a lot of them. So when you send 10, do you always get 10 items back? How many of you get 10 items back? I just want to see who's writing the best. You ask for 10 and you get 10. That's it. Man, there are some crazy good developers out here. I have never gotten that. In fact, I will go over some examples where I was just running through search APIs from different e-commerce websites, and one of our own Indian star sort of falters here and there. But yeah, let's, I think, go into it. And then don't fail silently, right? So if we go into examples, we look at search APIs. The first thing I would look at is Flipkart. I was going through the iPhone, Kashyap. So I looked at search, and here's the interesting thing. I'm not just going to do Flipkart. I'm going to do 1 mg as well, right? Because this is what happens in search. We go over search, and we've got a slow internet connection. Anyway, so if I look at iPhones, I go over network, and we see that it's fast. It's so good, right? But we look at the XHR calls, and you're always asking for 10, 10 items, and it's great, right? You're looking at the payload that was sent, and you're saying that I need, send me like 10 items, but it'll always send you 6, 5, 4. With us as well, it will show us, like, we'll send 10, and instead of that being the upper limit, sometimes we'd get like 20 items in a row, which is even worse. We shouldn't be doing this, but we end up doing this because of the scale of operations that we run. I think we have to admit that Flipkart runs some of the biggest infra out there in the country. It handles some of the biggest amount of traffic that we have seen. So when you're optimizing your search results in the back, it's a very expensive operation. And you can't just keep everything in a cache, right? So it becomes tough. We'll have to filter out things based on your location, the coupon that you're on, whether you're a new user or not. So many things apply. Whether you want GST or not, what filters you've got applied, right? Sorting and filtering is a pain. But now what we also realize is that they are trying to, and all of us, all of our organizations are trying to look at hiding the implementation, right? And saving ourselves the cost of implementation at the cost of what is expected from an API. And sometimes we also have to know that when I talk about ideology match, the organization within takes a call that this is what we have to do to make it work. And you make correct error handling and edge case handling for it so that you don't fail for your users. So we're all working together and bringing it in. The next one that I really like is scrolling, right? So have you guys ever been in a scenario where you want to, write a modal and then you want your background to stop scrolling? Makes sense, right? You've got a popover open, you've got a sheet open, you don't want your background to scroll. Weirdly, if I run this, right? This is a template that I built, and if we go into quick dashboard, we'll go into RI demos, we'll do an overflow demo here, and you see, now I want this entire thing to not scroll, and I've got overflow Y hidden, and it doesn't scroll. I'm trying really hard, right? I'm trying hard, but it's not scrolling. That's good. This is what is expected. If I do the same thing in Safari, it scrolls, right? And it's crazy because it's like so fundamental to what we do. Here's the thing. Someone logged a bug back in 2016 about it, and there have been threads from 2010, I think, 10 or 13 about it. And at the end, they said, and this goes on till 2021, and they said that there is another bug, so we are marking this as resolved, fixed. It's not fixed. They open another bug. This has been marked as duplicate of this other bug, fixed. You look at this, it's been marked duplicate of the previous bug, and it has been marked fixed, right? It's not fixed. Someone has to fix it. So yeah, things happen. But Safari also does this because of an ideological mismatch between us. Safari doesn't want random publishers to just stop your body from scrolling and throw ads at your face. But they, the entire web community needs to come to a consensus and say that this is how we are going to operate, right? Even though the intentions are good. Similarly for this, they say that will position sticky works. Have you guys, who are people who have transitioned from WebKit sticky to position to just sticky in your lifetime? I think I've done it. If people who have been writing code for a while, they've probably done it. Because Safari started shipping with just sticky from iOS 13, right? However, when that's Chrome, right? On iOS. And if you don't know what's happening, maybe you'll have something to take home. So I'll search Wix. See? It's not sticky. Right? Now can someone tell me why Chrome is not behaving correctly? Chrome has had that as well. It's still Safari, right? So those who did not know, Chrome on iOS is Safari. It uses WebKit and JSC rather than Blink and V8. So yeah, what do we do when things like this happen? Do we know like any of the libraries that are like this? What do we get when you throw everything in one single library? You get Lodash. But you get overwhelmed devs instead, right? Because that's what happens. You look at all of these libraries and you feel that everyone feels like this is important, but in today's day and age, maybe they're not. So we'll do a quick recap about what we learned about good APIs. We learned that a working API is great. Yeah, we should have a working API. A scalable API, even better. An API that is well documented is the best, right? But in my opinion, I think an API that is predictable is the best API that you can write. And if you've gone through the title of the talk and the description of the talk, it's called API and absolutely predictable interfaces. And that's what is the long form for me when I think of APIs. It'll be interesting to see what you guys take away with it. So we have very less time remaining. So we'll quickly go over some of the confusing flows and abstractions that exist today. I was going to talk a little bit more about this, but if you've attended Vinay Raghu's talk yesterday, you'll understand that there are several abstractions, both from Cloudflare and Next.js, where cache validation becomes a problem, right? It should be straightforward. It should not behave differently on different infra. It becomes, a lot of frameworks also decide to ship you something where they're trying to say that you should move to serverless, but if you want to do anything serverful, you don't really know what function is firing where, and the entire lifecycle sort of becomes murky, right? And we'll quickly run through the things that are important to us, right? Let's make a framework out of the things that we've learned so far. If we have a browser and we have a server, this is what we used to live in. We send a page request, the server sends us a response. Good pre-rendered HTML, great. If we send out an asset, we evolved, right? We are now hosting images, videos, etc. with static HTML. We are doing both on the server. We've now decided that we want to do even more. We've now said that we'll have multiple routes. We'll also have data fetching involved in it, so we can do dynamic data on page routes. So we started doing that. Then we brought in individual functions. We moved to like an MVC architecture. So the VC is what you can see here, right? And then we decided that, oh, this is great, but then interactive is also important, right? And we started to sort of disown this entire SSR flow, and we moved to entirely client-side. And now, today, we are at a place where we are embracing both sides of it, and we are optimizing together, right? So before SSR came into the picture, there was this one nice framework that I think really helped, and sadly, it's not there today, right? So we love CRA. I think it was great. A lot of companies in India have been built on top of it. But we'll have to run through the demo. But like, it's sad that we don't have CRA, so we wanted to come up with something that would feel similar, right? So I'll just close this out. So this is what we have. I'll quickly run all of my, oh yeah. right. Yes. Right. So can you see the screen? Yeah. So, right. I'll just do a quick npm run start, and then I'll look into my WebStorm, and then I'll look into Chrome. Right. So if I set this up, and we look at, let's say we close this entire thing, and we show that this is sort of an output structure of what a framework could look like. We have a client file where we can have some styles. We have a config file. We have some logs. We have a public file where we can save multiple things. You have server. This looks very old school, right? The way we used to do things. And in server, you've got your index. You set up a proxy if you want to fire backend APIs. And then you've got your SRC, JS, everything in it, right? So now, if I go into routes, and if I say that I've got this nice landing page where I can say, hello, React India, and I go and create a container. So I go into home. I already have it here. Let's say I've added a new container, and I just want to say, right? And then I go into routes, and it's so simple, right? Because I just do path / home / so end true because you want it to be the last thing that is out there. And you do home, right? So if I do that, and if I wait for my code to compile, and if I add / home, I see that we already have a route, right? And we can do things. But you will also see that we may not have the entire document. So if I look at home, I have, hello, I'm Saurav. So this is a static HTML which you can serve directly, just like we saw in the first 3-4 slides. Then, if we wanted to, let's say, do some data fetching, right? What if I went in and I said that I'll add home, and then I'll go into home, I'll add some widgets, I'll add some actions, I'll add this nice little data fetcher, right? And then I'd say that, if you could quickly do this, right? And you have data, right? You have dynamic data available. It'll be nice if things would become so easy, where you have clear definition of this is a client fetcher, and you're going to use this to do any sort of data fetching on client. Now when you look at the doc that we sent in, and we saw that if I'm running home, I don't really see anything else, right? Because all of this is being fetched on the client. What if I want to move things to the server side? And let me quickly run this as well. Yeah. And then we look at, we go to home. I decide that there is a client fetcher, but let me also do a server fetcher, right? Should work on the server. Same API call, nothing has changed. And if I go to /home, we have a page again, but is it a server rendered page? Yes, right? If frameworks could be this simple, I think we would all love to build things on top of it, right? Does anyone does not like the way this operates right now? Any show of hands? None. Okay, so I think we agree, right? What if I told you that we've already built this framework, right? You built it right now. It was very small. We had to rush through it, but it's already there. And it's a framework that we have been working on for over the years. Over the last 4 years, where we've been coming to React India and other conferences across the country, we have seen multiple requests where they looked at our performance and the way we were doing things, and they said that, why couldn't you guys just make a framework that all of us could build upon? And we thought that is a great idea. We should publish a package soon. So we decided that we'll call it Catalyst. And following suit of the beta launch of the compiler, I think we're going to do an open source launch today, right? I think if we just go into settings, it's open source. I hope you guys go home, try it out. We'd love for your feedback. It does a lot of things. I couldn't, do much. We want you to move. So CRA, folks from CRA can move to CCA. We'll think about maybe doing a code mod for those who are used to CRA and see if we can start off with CRA and then we can move you to create Catalyst app. We love you, CRA. And if you want to check out how did we get here, you can look at all of our videos here. You can look at all of the resources that we have published. I have added every single video in here in the order that you should watch it so that you can understand the fundamentals that we've used to build it and also the outlining API and the fancier features that we want to build. I'm really grateful for you guys to listen to me. But like we said, we wanted to build this, not just build it for you, but build it with you. So it'll be really nice if you guys could start using it, shower us with issues on our GitHub repository. We want to hear critical feedback, break Catalyst all throughout. We would want to fix it with you. We invite you guys to also collaborate so that we can bring on more contributors who bring in nicer ideas. And I think hopefully we'd be able to get something out that is at an international stage on par with other frameworks that we really respect like Next and Remix, right? I think it's high time we should have something from here as well. There's one small thing that I was maybe going to, talk about. I don't know whether this demo is going to work. I haven't ran it in a while, and so let's see if we can get the yes. So if you use Catalyst, you can publish Android and iOS native bridge with web views baked in. So if there are organizations that want to ship multi-platform, I think web views are the way to go. Just in case people did not know, 1mg is about 60 to 70% web views on both Android and iOS. I think you guys can do a lot with web views today. So yeah, I think, see, it's just like web. It has animations. You can use view transitions and start shipping native APKs and IPAs, right? Cool, that's it. That was all. Thank you so much.